Welcome to the Wheats on Your Mind podcast. My name is Aaron Harries. Wheats on Your Mind is brought to you by the Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. On this episode of the podcast, our topic is the future of nanotechnology in farming. Nanotechnology is a branch of science and engineering devoted to designing, producing, and using particles of matter that are measured in nanometers or microns. Since 2022, K-State entomologists have been working with USDA to apply this technology in agriculture, and I am joined by Jeff Whitworth, a field crop entomologist with K-State Research and Extension, to tell us about that. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, my pleasure. Anytime. I'm happy to be here.
Good. Well, this is interesting stuff. Tell us about the origins of this project and kind of what the goals are.
Okay, I'll be happy to. First of all, this started with the USDA doing some nanotechnology research, looking at mosquitoes and biting midges. And they have a nanoscientist, a nanotechnologist, I'm not exactly sure what her title was, but a female scientist that has a PhD in nanotechnology, which is an inorganic chemist, in essence. So they were doing nanoparticles, nanotechnology work in the early 2001, and they started realizing some of the particles killed mosquito larvae at very, very, very low concentrations, much lower than any of the pesticides they'd ever tried. And they were using some more inorganic particles that normally weren't considered pesticides that actually worked to control mosquito larvae. Now, you got to realize, as you said, I'm an entomologist, so we're talking a little bit way above my pay grade, but I'll try and explain it to you at the entomological level. Anyway, it was very interesting to them that these particles were killing these mosquitoes. Now, mosquito larvae, you realize they are reared in water, so anytime a pesticide or anything gets in the water, it's absorbed throughout the whole body of the mosquito larva in this case. So it doesn't take quite as much as it does to kill most insects, which we transition to as far as agricultural pests. So anyway, they were intrigued by that. They came to me and said, hey, you know what? We think maybe there's a big market in this for agricultural pests because that's where the marketing is, for pesticides. I was intrigued. I thought, anytime we can use less pesticide and get the same efficacy, same amount of control, it's got to be good. So K-State, we got together with USDA, got a grant together to buy all the equipment. And trust me, the equipment is specialized and expensive. We got the grant starting in 2022, and it was the fall of 2023 before we actually got all the equipment so we could start the nanoparticle formulating part of it.
Yeah, I was reading about this research, and I was disappointed when I realized it wasn't nanobots. It's not the little machines that are crawling in there. And so you talk about specialized equipment. Tell us what a nanoparticle is. I mean, size-wise, it's small, obviously, but how do you build them?
Remember what I said. I'm an entomologist.
Right.
All right. When Dr. Norton, who was the nano scientist on the project, she was intrigued by adding a little breadth to her research also. So we were fortunate when we got the grant to be able to hire her also away from the USDA. That doesn't often happen that little old Kansas State can get a federal employee, but we did that just, I think, basically because of the breadth of the project that we're able to add to it. So that's one of the first things she did was make nanoparticles. And I said, okay, let me look at them. And she just held up a glass and said, there they are. And I said, okay. I said, how do you know? She said, because it turned brown. The liquid, the suspension did. And so
it's like the old flea circus trick.
The way I look at it, you got to have a lot of faith, right?
Yeah.
You believe the chemists and the instruments. We got all this equipment, and it will tell you exactly the concentration of whatever it is, and there's different carbon. I don't know. There's all kinds of different stuff. Remember, I'm the entomologist, and she's not. She doesn't know a bug from she might know a bug from a crab, but just barely. It works. We've worked out pretty well together. Seriously, you just got to trust the instrumentation or the equipment. And like I said, it is high dollar and it's specialized. So and she knows how to work all of it. And so it does seem to me like it's working pretty well. Anyway, we got the grant, we got started, and by the time we got all the equipment in, we decided what we wanted to do. First of all, is Kansas is the wheat state, right?
Right.
Wheat's a very important crop to Kansas. We've done a lot of research on Hessian fly in wheat, disproving the Hessian fly-free date. There's no Hessian fly-free date anymore. We've shown that a lot of the resistant genes can break down based upon some of the temperatures and stuff like that. So, plus the actual reason we want to do wheat and Hessian flies is because we have a colony of Hessian flies available to us, so we don't have to start rearing a new insect, and the USDA has a colony that we're able to utilize anytime. We've got a really good relationship. So the first thing we wanted to do was try seed treatments. Really, Aaron, it shocked me. All the commercially available corn in Kansas, the seeds treated, and I'm talking about with an insecticide seed treatment. Most of the sorghum is. I didn't think much wheat was, but I was talking to one of the major co-ops in Kansas a year ago about seed treatments on wheat, and they said about 88% of it is insecticide treated, which floored me. I thought it was just fungicide treated. I didn't know insecticide. I thought insecticides were more on call. But they said 80% of theirs was. I thought, well, that'd be a good place to start. We don't need it. We don't need that much insecticide on seeds for wheat in Kansas. But I thought that was a good place to start. So we have got the problem, the way I see it so far, we've tested insecticide seed treatments on Hessian fly. They haven't done that much before, but we're doing it on wheat right now. It seems to work pretty well, just a regular standard. The problem we've had is developing the nano rate. One of the things that now, remember, I'm an entomologist, okay? I'm going a little outside my lane, but one of the parts of nanotechnology, I guess, is they're very good at determining concentration, which is after the fact. So, like you spray a field, you can go to the runoff or the pond, and you can pull a sample, and you can get the concentration of the pesticide that ran into the water, right? But what we're trying to do is figure out the rate a priori ahead of time to treat the seed with. This is not a short-term project. It's going to take a while, but what we're doing is trying to figure out the different seed treatment rates and what apply. And I just dug some plants yesterday to bring in to infest with Hessian fly. They haven't gone dormant yet. At least our wheat plots haven't. So what we've done, the seed treatments are working pretty well. We've been able to, hopefully, according to Dr. Norton, what we've done is got half rates of the seed treatments and a 100th rate. Remember, nanotechnology is very small. We brought those in to the lab. We've infested with Hessian fly. They seem to be working so far. They're maybe not as good as the normal rate you would use on a seed. It looks to me like I said, it's not a short-term project. I think there's some hope there. Anyway, that's one of the things we're doing with the Hessian fly and wheat. And the next thing we're doing is letting that stay out in the field. Because, as you know, wheat's a unique crop. It goes through a period of dormancy in the winter, and then it starts growing in the summer. Well, the seed treatments don't last through the period, so if they did, that would be a real bonus. The thing about nanoparticles, according to the nanotechnologists, is because of their small size, they're more readily taken up by the plant or the insect or whatever it is and translocated or moved throughout the body, okay, just because of their small size. So whatever site they're affecting, they're more readily moved to that site, and also they're stored more easily in the roots or whatever it is. So that's one of the reasons why we have hope, maybe, that if we treat the seeds in the fall and we plant in the fall, they work okay in the fall, but maybe they will last throughout the winter, through the period of dormancy, and be active again in the spring. I don't know. We'll see. This is our first year of testing it in the field. Seems to work okay in the greenhouse or the growth chamber, but that's a whole different kind of setup than what you actually see in the field.
So the idea here is reducing the rate just because it's more ingestible by the insect or the plant, and so the challenge you're having is determining the rates.
Exactly. And anytime you use a pesticide, it's all about timing. So it's also when you put it out. For instance, a seed treatment, the seed treatments on wheat will last, 21 to 28 days in the field from the time it's planted to the time it's degraded or it's not as effective. So like this year, we waited till 26th of October to plant because it's just so dry. Mm-hmm. And once there's a forecasted rain, we planted and everything germinated. So we hope that seed treatment's working. But if it's more bioavailable, it should be, or hopefully it'll be more easily stored in the plant for use later on. I don't know. I'm just saying that's what we're hoping. That's what we're thinking about. So yeah, the idea is to make it more easily used by the plant or the insect, whichever, but also used at a lot smaller dose or lesser rate so that there's less pesticide out there in the field. You know, I'm all for pesticides. Don't get me wrong. I like they work really well, but only if necessary. So that's what we're trying to. We're also trying foliar, where you spray over the foliage to kill the insect as needed. They seem to be a little more easily formulated, or the rates seem to be a little more easily determined than what it is when you put a slurry and put the seed in there and let it dry, and then you're not exactly sure how much is on the seed. That a foliar insecticide, an over-the-top spray of the plants, a little more easily regulated, controlled, whatever you want to call it, than these seed treatments. So we're trying that in corn. We're trying that with corn rootworms. Again, just because there's a colony of corn rootworms available to us with USDA, they supply them to us almost on call. So those are the first two insect pests we're looking at: Hessian fly on wheat and corn rootworm on corn, in the hopes that we can reduce the amount of pesticide used, but get the same efficacy, same degree of control, and hopefully it will be, I say this isn't our bailiwick, but hopefully it'll be less expensive to the growers. But that's not our purview. Our purview is if we develop this stuff and it seems like it's going to work really well, then we're going to turn over to the ag chemical companies, the Bayers, Syngentas, FMCs, and they can do with it what they want. But right now, I think it's really interesting. I think we've had some pretty good success using eggshells to kill stored product insects.
Wow.
As a nano, they squish them up, or they make nanoparticles out of eggshells and put it on red flower beetles, and you can put it in a flour mill because it's biodegradable. Seems to work pretty well in controlling red flower beetles, so we've got a publication out on that. But I think there's all kinds of innovative projects like that will be available once we really master now Dr. Norton will probably say I haven't mastered, but once we've mastered the technique of determining the nano rates compared to the normal rates that are already registered and everybody's used to using. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Hypothetically, this has applications maybe with fertilizer too?
Yes. Oh, yeah. We're trying with fertilizers, herbicides. Dr. Lancaster's working with Dr. Norton on some herbicide. Yeah, like I said, it seems to me like right now it's only limited by our imagination and our ability to make the nano slurry or the nanoparticles at the rate we want to and have it be repeatable. That sounds like something easy, but that's something you have to do, but that's what we're working on. You can make this nano rate and it works pretty well, but you can go back and get the concentration, but then you're not exactly sure how you made that rate. That doesn't sound like it should be that difficult, but it seems to me like that's where we are right now. Once we can determine the rate, once we're able to repeat the rate consistently and it works, then we'll know we have something. But like I said, this is not a short-term fix. I told the USDA, and they know that. It's going to be a 6 or 7 year project, I think. I think K-State will be kind of the wheelhouse, determining whether it works or not on some of these common ag pests that we have, because we've got all the equipment and we're the first in the pool, if you look at it like that.
Well, let's think hypothetically about another wheat application. Wheat streak mosaic virus, high plains virus, triticum mosaic virus, all vectored by wheat curl mite.
Yes.
And we've traditionally been told pesticides don't work. They're too small, the mites are too small, they hide. Do you think there's an application here that might finally get us over the hump on that?
Well, first of all, the wheat curl mite is not as susceptible to seed treatments as the insects are. Generally speaking, if we have wheat plots and we have a problem with wheat curl mites and we have a problem with aphids, you can use seed treatments and it'll kill the aphids. Doesn't bother the mites. I don't know why that is, but that's true. But yeah, a foliar spray, if it's taken up, it might. The problem with, you talk about barley yellow dwarf, we can control aphids really easily with seed treatments. But the problem with that aphid has to take a little bit of the juice out of the plant to get the toxin from the seed treatment. And in so doing, it can transfer the virus. Okay, so you might reduce it a little bit, but you're not going to eliminate it that way. And that's one of the problems with, I get asked all the time, well, I'm going to spray a fungicide on my wheat. Should I put in a little insecticide just in case to kill the aphids? I say no, because you're just speeding up resistance, and we do have resistance. And the aphids are continuously migrating in, and insecticides are going to last 7 to 10 days, maybe 14 days if you're lucky. So we don't really use that as a recommendation for controlling barley yellow dwarf or aphids. But bringing that up, we did kind of aside here. A couple years ago, we did a study, a survey all the way across the state for wheat curl mites. We found them all the way across the state into the Kansas City area. We generally think of them more in the western part of the state, but we found
they were everywhere this year.
They're all the way across the state.
Yep.
The same with barley yellow dwarf. We tested barley yellow dwarf, and they had to have the capability of, which astounds me again, determining from one aphid if that aphid is infected with the virus that causes one of the barley yellow dwarfs, which is just, think how little that is. Talk about nanotechnology, that's pretty small. But yeah, we can do all that kind of stuff. So yeah, as far as wheat curl mites, again, that's the best way to get rid of wheat curl mites is to get rid of volunteer wheat. That's my old standby. They can't fly, they can't jump, they can't hop, they can't do anything. So the wind moves them, or they crawl from one plant that's touching another. So yeah, I don't know about, like I said, Hessian fly. We did a survey on Hessian fly a few years ago. It's in 1 to 2% of every field in Kansas is infested with Hessian fly. That doesn't sound like much, and most growers don't notice it, but think about that. If you're losing 1 to 2% across the whole state, that adds up. And occasionally, the infestation will balloon on you, so you'll lose a field or two or a little area. So that's the reason we started with Hessian fly. Plus, it's a worldwide pest. It's number one pest of wheat worldwide. Yeah, we're considering all the pests. Armyworms. We've had problems with armyworms and fall armyworms in wheat in the last 2 or 3 years. That's another one that I think might be a good one for a foliar application of a nanopesticide, where you don't have to use much insecticide and still get good control. At least I'm hoping so. At least that's what we're trying.
How many years left in this project? So what's the next step?
2 more years on this, but I'm thinking I'm hoping it's renewable.
Mm-hmm.
It goes into September of 2026, so we should have a pretty good handle on if it's going to work in wheat and corn, at least for Hessian fly and corn rootworms. Like I said, we're also trying on some stored product pests and on some weeds with the weed science folks over here, and she's also trying with, I think, some fertilizers group over here. She's a nanotechnologist, and I'm just helping her with the insect part of it. She's helping others or consulting with others throughout the College of Ag Sciences to see wherever she can utilize nanotechnology to benefit agriculture and basically to reduce the amount of pesticide used, but still get the same degree of control.
Great. Well, Jeff, thanks for filling us in on this. Sounds like an awesome project, and we'll circle back to you and see how things are going later.
Hey, my pleasure. Anytime.
Thanks to Jeff Whitworth with K-State for joining me on this episode of the Wheats on Your Mind podcast. If you have a topic you'd like us to cover or a follow-up question for Jeff, please email us at kswheat@kswheat.com. I'm Aaron Harries. Thanks for listening.